Welcome everyone, it's Jane, and I would like to welcome everyone to my first YouTube video on my wonderful initiative called Del Sorel. Del Sorel means from or of the sisters, and I'm one of 6 sisters, 2 in heaven, and then the 4 of us here. So it's me, Christine, Angela, and Rose, and my wonderful sister Rosie came up with the name. And it fits, it's perfect for us because we're really such great sisters and we love each other and we're so interested in everything that we do. Wonderful, accomplished women. We do so much for our friends and family, and every one of us has talents. And, we bake and we make. There's sourdough going back behind me. But today, what we're going to learn how to do is to make wine. We have a wonderful family event coming next May, a wedding. And I am making the boutique wine for the wedding. We have about 40 bottles that have been bottled now for about 1.5 years over in the library. I'll get a shot of those later. And those were fermented about 1.5 years ago. And so they're just getting good. It's a wonderful Malbec. We got sourced the grapes from Chile, and it's aging so nicely. It'll be just perfect next May. But today it's time to do white wine because, as you know, white wine you can drink younger, and we're looking for a really nice, crisp, drinkable wine for our May afternoon wedding here in California. The weather's probably going to be in the 70s. We're going to have people that are going to be kicking it up, dancing, and so this wonderful white table wine is going to be great. I was able to source some grapes from a vineyard in Canada. It's a Sauvignon Blanc. I've used their grapes before. I know that they're great, and the white is going to be just fabulous. And so a couple of important things about making wine. It's a little bit of biology and a little bit of chemistry together. I think that's what fascinates me the most. You want to always start out with really good materials. So read the reviews on where you're getting your grapes from. People will tell you if it was good or not so good. That's important. And if you can, go organic. Not every vineyard is able to do that. And I've used non-organic as well, and it's been fabulous. But I think that the less that you put into the grapes you're growing, really the better. So just what the good Lord put in there in the first place, if possible. And there are some wonderful vineyards that, have good organic grapes. You expect to pay a little bit more, a little bit of a premium for them, but it's worth it. And the next thing that you really want to do, and that's very, very important, is your technique. You have to start with clean materials. When you're fermenting grape juice, you really want the only thing to be using the sugar that's in there is the yeast that's going to produce the alcohol. And so to have that happen, you have to start with clean, aseptic technique. And that means, you're going to use the hottest water available and bleach, 1 cup of bleach per gallon of water. You're going to scrub the inside of your primary fermenter and all of your materials, and really let it soak. And then you're going to rinse it with the hottest water possible. Your hands are probably going to turn red, but that's okay because you want to start with as clean as possible. And then once you're done with that, you don't dry it with an old towel. You just rinse it with good hot water. And then you let it set and let that evaporate, or that hot water will evaporate right out. Because you don't want to be sticking something back into the inside of what you're making your wine with and then dirtying it up again with an old towel. You're going to start with your primary fermenter. And then I mentioned chemistry and biology. So the biology part of it, of course, is how the yeast uses the sugar and produces gas and then also alcohol. And so the yeast it's a living thing, and it's like a miracle, really. It transforms it. The chemistry part of it is the raw material that you start with, the fuel that you give the yeast. It's really important that you get that right. You want to have enough sugar in your juice to produce alcohol, but not too much sugar, where you end up with enough alcohol to kill the yeast and then too much sugar left. That's a sweet wine. Maybe we appreciated that when we were in high school, but we want a nice, crisp, fresh wine. So you want to be really careful with what, where you start with on your sugar. If you don't have enough sugar, then you'll end up with a dry wine where there's no sugar left over and maybe not enough alcohol. So it's super important that the chemistry part of it is correct. Luckily, it's known. You don't have to guess. And the instructions, either on the internet or a good wine book, will tell you how to use it. And what you're going to be using is what's called a hydrometer. And this measures specific gravity. If you remember from chemistry, specific gravity is the pressure that is placed on something from liquid. So we're going to have grape juice. It's not just plain water. It has particles suspended in it. And part of what is suspended in it is sugar. The more sugar suspended, then the more pressure that will be placed on the hydrometer, and the hydrometer will be pushed out of the grape juice higher. And it doesn't take a lot. Like, you can look and see this hydrometer has really very small ticks on it, and there's a sweet spot in there for wine. So it doesn't take a lot, but it's super important to check it. The other couple of things that are important is the pH. You have to have the pH within range, or the yeast won't, they'll just die because it's either too acidic or too basic. That's not typically a problem with grape juice that you're getting from a vineyard. They already know the grapes are not going to be coming. But if you were using backyard grapes that you're growing yourself, and you were going to want to convert that into wine, then it would be pretty important to check the pH and just make sure it's in the right range. And if it isn't, then you can add either citric acid, for example, to bring it into the right range. I have never had an occasion where I've had to fiddle with the pH, so probably okay there. We're going to start, we're going to make 6 gallons today. And 6 gallons is a good way to start. It's a good amount for a home vineyard. It's heavy. It's going to be a 6-gallon primary fermenter here. It's quite heavy, but I won't handle it. I'll fill it, but then once it starts fermenting, I'll have one of my sons, heft it over, and we'll put it in a good warmer spot in the house and let it finish the fermentation. Not the garage. It'll get too hot in there. So, but we've got a good spot in the library that I've used many times, and it's just perfect there. It's the right temperature. And also, we kind of like having it around the house, because then friends and family, we wander by and like, how's the wine doing? Especially, during the period of time when it's actively fermenting, because it's pretty fun to watch. It's actually kind of bubbling. The second piece that's really important is during the winemaking process. Of course, you don't want to contaminate your wine. So you always start with clean, aseptic as possible. But then the other important piece is this airlock, and there are several different kinds of them. What we're going to do is we're going to put water into this airlock, and what will happen during the fermentation process is that the gas will push itself out through the airlock, and the negative pressure, the water in the airlock will prevent gas from outside coming back in. Super important, because if we pull gas in, then what we're going to pull in from the room air is also the bacteria and other weird things that are floating around in everybody's house, not just my house. So that's an important piece as well. So we start by cleaning everything and letting it just air dry. We keep a really clean surface, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'll pause for a second. I'm going to go ahead and get the grape juice into the primary fermenter and just kind of get that ready to go, and then we'll do step 2.